Hey everybody! Today we're going to make a lemon white cake. We're going to use the reverse creaming method or the paste method to do that, which means we're going to start with our dry ingredients in the bowl. We have 326 grams of cake flour, 333 grams of regular granulated sugar, which is just your regular white sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt. This recipe can be found on the King Arthur website. It's their tender white cake recipe. To this mixture of sugar and flour, I'm going to add 170 grams of softened unsalted butter. Make sure the butter you can just squeeze right through. We want to make sure that it gets creamed right into all this flour. Because this is a lemon cake, we're going to add some fresh lemon zest to this recipe. All the flavor here comes from fresh lemon juice and zest. So we're just going to grate all of the zest of 1 lemon straight into our butter mixture and flour mixture. And oftentimes the compounds that make things flavorful are fat bound, which means they need another fat to sort of help release them. So when you mix the zest in with our butter, it's going to help add all that extra lemon flavor. The other option is that you can put it in with your milk, and you can warm your milk up a little bit, and that'll help extract some of the flavor from the zest as well. I'm using a microplane to get all the zest off, and what you want to make sure you don't do is go beyond that pale yellow part of the lemon. If you go too far beyond that, you get to that white layer between the outside of the lemon and the fruit of the lemon inside, and it's called the pith, P-I-T-H, and it's very bitter, and we don't want a bitter cake, right? We want just a lemony cake. So make sure that you don't go too far. You see I'm just turning it constantly, and there's no white spots anywhere. It's just pale yellow, okay? Let's give that a good tap, and there we'll have all of our lemon zest in there. Once we have all of our lemon zest in the bowl, we're going to put this on our stand mixer, and we're going to use a paddle attachment to cream all of the butter into all of the dry ingredients. We're going to start on low speed. Just so you know what the rest of the ingredients are, I have 4 egg whites and one whole egg in the bowl, and I've warmed them up from the fridge by running them under warm water while they're still in the shell. And then in here I have milk mixed with 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 2.5 teaspoons of vanilla, and that'll go in at the end. So let's get our dry ingredients mixed in with our butter. Starting on low speed. All right, so we can see here, if we look in close, that the mixture has now turned into what looks like coarse breadcrumbs. You don't really see any huge chunks of butter in there. It's just all granulated looking, and that's what we want to see. We don't want big chunks of butter, because big chunks of butter will melt in, give you weird pockets in your cake, in your final cake. So now we're gonna keep it on low speed, and we're going to add all of our eggs. So it's 4 egg whites, 1 whole egg, all at once. What's nice about this recipe is that because the butter has been added to the flour, it sort of coats it, and fat typically will help reduce any toughness flour might develop because it breaks down gluten strands. So you can see just coming together, you can see some egg white on the center there. So what I'm going to do at this point, anytime you add anything to a cake batter, you should give it a quick stir after the addition and then before you add the next thing. So get that all mixed in. And scrape off your spatula on the actual attachment instead of on the side of the bowl. It helps keep the bowl a little cleaner. And then we'll give it a quick mix. You want to make sure all of your ingredients are at room temperature. So I had fridge milk, that was kind of cold. So I just popped it in the microwave until it felt just warm to the touch. So now we're going to add our milk in a steady stream. If you pour it in all at once, it'll splash around a bit. So take your time. You could also use yogurt for this, 227 grams of yogurt or milk. I added acid to help thicken it up a little bit as well. If you wanted to make this cake just a vanilla cake, you could certainly leave out the lemon juice and the lemon zest. It's a really lovely vanilla cake as well. So you can see almost everything is mixed in. So I'm going to drop the bowl down and give everything a really good scrape all the way to the bottom of the bowl, because you can see there's big lumps at the bottom that might not get mixed in otherwise. So this should make about 2 9-inch rounds, or maybe 20 cupcakes, depending on how you scoop your cupcakes, how big they are. Okay, so we're going to get that all mixed in. Remember, you don't want to overmix your cake batter, because then you get tough cake. But because we mixed the butter in first, a lot of the flour is now coated in fat, so it can't get as much gluten development as you would in a normal recipe. Get it nice and smooth, and then just set it aside, because I have my oven preheated to 350, but I wanted to show you. I'm doing 2 6-inch rounds. Okay, and we're going to put parchment in the bottom of them. So I'm going to show you how to do that. What I have is a piece of parchment paper. Okay, what I'm going to do is fold it in half. There's a couple ways to do this. You can take your pan and plonk it right down and then trace around the outside, or you can fold it in half and in half again as a triangle, just like you're making a snowflake. You put this into the center. Okay, you mark that and then you cut that out with scissors. Because I want to get 2 rounds out of this, I'm going to put this down, cut out, and then cut out my 2 circles. Now keep in mind, I'm using a pencil. When you cut this out, either try to keep the pencil lines out of the cutting entirely, or if there's some pencil lines on the paper, make sure you put that pencil side down in your pan so you don't have any of the graphite in the pencil touching your cake. All right, so now we have our 2 6-inch rounds that are just going to go right inside. And then I use cooking spray. You can find the kind that has the flour already added to it, but I find these work fine, this kind. So give it a good shake. Make sure that little red dot is lined up with the spray nozzle, and just go around the edges to help our cakes keep from sticking. If you don't have pan spray available, you can certainly use a little bit of butter on a paper towel, go in there, or Crisco, or even vegetable oil. They'll all work. So now we're going to add our batter. All right, so we're going to pour about halfway up the side of this pan. There, you can see the 2 pans have different heights, so you just want to eyeball it. It's going to roughly double in height, so you don't want to overfill it. This is for a birthday cake for a friend. And if you have the 2 pans next to each other, you can see visually how full they are, because you want your layers to be even if you're making a layer cake. So I'm going to put these in a 350 oven for about probably half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on your oven. So I will keep you posted on how long it took. And because we don't want to waste any of that lovely batter, which by the way will freeze well, I have these really cool mini bundt pans. So I'm just going to give them a quick spray, and then we're going to put a little cake batter in each one so we can have little mini cakes. So my friend gets her cake and then I get some. And just like when I'm making a muffins or cupcakes, I'm going to use one of my favorite kitchen tools, which is a ice cream scoop. All right, so what you do is you just go in, pull up, I don't know if you guys can see, pull up the side of the bowl so you don't have any drips, and then just plop it right in the pan. And this is the same way you would do it for cupcakes or muffins. And this way you have an even amount of batter in each one, and it's faster. When you have some empty muffin tins and you're putting it in the oven, you don't want them to just be bare, especially if you've already coated them in oil, because the oil will burn. So I always add a little bit of water, and that will keep it from sort of destroying your pan, you having to scrape off all of that cooked on oil. Just be careful when you're moving it to the oven that it doesn't slosh around into your other little... And here we have our final product. Our cakes took about 30 minutes to cook. These little guys took about 18. And if we come over to the cake, if you press down on a cake and it springs back, it's done. If it leaves a big fingerprint in there, it's not done. You can also use a toothpick to stick in the middle, but typically anytime it springs back like that, you're good to go. So make sure you're cooling your cakes on a cooling rack, and then you can tip them out of the pan and onto the cooling rack to cool all the way. It smells really good. I had 7, but then my son woke up and ate one. So now I have 6 of these little guys to enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Bye, guys.